Well, hello. Welcome to the panel where we'll be discussing Pursuing the Dream, Stage, TV, and Film, the life of actors, writers, and producers. My name is Robin Clare, and this panel for Afro Comic Con, the virtual event 2020, and I thank everyone for joining us. Please consider donating to the Afro Comic Con Moonshot Junior program. This program funds young girls of color to go through a 12-month program where they will learn tech skills, innovation, product development, and entrepreneurship. Just click on the donation link. Any amount will help. Thanks a lot. So let's get started. We have a wonderful group here with us today. And we're going to go around. We're going to start with Rodney, then Onika, then Ricco, and Denzel. And I have asked them all to share a little bit about their bios, who they are, and their journey in entertainment industry. Rodney, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Rodney Barnes. I'm a writer-producer of approximately 25 years. I've written and produced such shows as My Wife and Kids, Everybody Hates Chris, The Boondocks, American Gods, Wu-Tang, and American Saga, a few others. And currently, I'm writing and producing a television show based on the LA Lakers of the 1980s for HBO. And I also write comic books, and that's me.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Onika. I'm originally from Berkeley. I've lived in New York, LA, Atlanta. Started off in theater when I was a little kid. Quit, got into music videos, quit, and now I've probably played a cop, stripper, and a crackhead on all of your favorite television shows. Been in there. Also a writer, producer as well, and getting into directing. Been in this business for about 20 years, have been off and on, but I've stuck through, and the longer that I've been in, pretty much stuck with it and made a way.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ricco Ross. I guess best actor, producer, writer. Best known for movies like Aliens, A Husband for Christmas, Mission Impossible, Doctor Who, a number of other things. Originally from Chicago. I live in LA now. I've been living here for about 20 years. My journey was kind of... I guess, as they say sometimes, I didn't find acting, acting found me. A teacher kind of pulled me off out of the hallways and told me I was going to be in her play, and that's kind of how it got started. I lived in Europe for 13 years. I went there for 1 year to study Shakespeare, which turned into 13 years. And for those years, I was working as an illegal alien actor in London. As an Englishman until I was able to get papers, and then I started working as an American actor in England. Yeah, that's me.
Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Denzel Whitaker. I am an actor, I'm a writer, and also a director. I've been acting for about 20 years, and very similar to Ricco, acting basically found me. Nobody in my family is an entertainer or an actor, or basically within the business. So I gotta say it was just God-given. Got my start on Training Day when I was super young at the age of 10. Then starred in the hit show All That on Nickelodeon, series regular on that, and then went on to do Great Debaters, My Soul to Take with Wes Craven, most notably Black Panther, which has recently come out. And I have 2 films out right now. One with RZA called Cutthroat City that just dropped on all streaming platforms, and also Follow Me, aka No Escape, which is also on all streaming platforms. And here to, obviously learn, grow, and talk about, our careers, and really excited to share with you guys some of the stuff I've been up to during the pandemic this year.
Wow, we have a very engaging group, lots of experience here. So, Denzel mentioned the pandemic, and the theater community has really been hit hard by the pandemic. But it's also been a time for a lot of creative people to get stuff going, projects going that they might not have been able to do. Um, is this something that you guys are finding, or is this just like you're kind of like shooting lots of cat videos and going on TikTok and dancing and stuff like that? So how how has everyone been, fueling their creative brains and bodies and mind? Somebody start.
Sure, I'll go. Onika and I happened to have a chat earlier this year. Literally, I think it was April, probably, Onika?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, we spoke earlier for Afro Comic Con, and it's one of those things where thankfully been fortunate enough to be like a self-starter. So, a lot of my brothers within the industry, brothers and sisters, I basically tapped in with them at the beginning when the stay-at-home orders came about. And we just sort of, put our minds together and we figured out, okay, how can we stay busy during this time? What can we do as creatives? Because that's our gift. We can make something out of nothing. Whether it's a script we've been putting off for a while, whether it's that exercise routine we had to get going. So we were just like, how can we be creative? My producing partner and I, we started a Kickstarter at the beginning of quarantine, I guess you could call it. We raised over about 35 grand publicly, went and shot a short film during the height of the pandemic, above the board, got clearance from SAG, made sure all of our permits were straight, just everything. And right now we're in post. So that's been keeping us busy as we're developing this series so that by the time everything lifts up, or if these streaming platforms are still looking for content, we at least have something to give them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Onika, you're muted.
Sorry, I got to get that off and on going right. Personally, it's been a year of, living in New York. I've had to actually go back and forth between the Bay Area and New York because my mother's been sick. So this is like the first time ever that I haven't, I've just been focusing on family and then trying to interweave, all the issues with that. But it's actually, there's a lot of creative things that have come out of taking care of family and sitting back and not, like this is the first time I haven't had the hustle and bustle of, everything and the auditions and, and the, hustle, just out there pounding the pavement, especially in New York. I've found that I've grown so much more as an artist because getting back into myself and my family, that has been a whole shift in what I've been, doing for like the last 20 years of like, I got to get this done. I got to do this. I have to, get my hair right. Whatever it is, like to, think that you have to push to make things happening. And now it's just kind of a shift of like allowing things to come in and as an actor, artist, creator, just embracing that, that life, real life coming in. And, it's just interesting because most of my friends out here in New York work in theater, myself is television and film, and like they're Broadway, they're like freaking out a little bit because, now Broadway shut down until May. But I find that most of my friends in theater are becoming like creating this whole new genre now that we have with immersive shows. Like they're doing a lot of the premieres and there's a whole new thing. And like, there's even like now this whole little, argument with like SAG and AFTRA of like, who's in control of like streaming online content. So, it's been interesting to see what we're developing out of all of this.
One thing that I have noticed when you talk about people in theater is there seems to be a revival of street theater.
Yes.
Or theater in the park.
Right.
Folks are, kind of just doing little sketches and things like that. And, in parks and areas, it's like, I remember like in the Bay Area in San Francisco, you'd
Right.
walk through Union Square and you would see the mines there. Robin
Right.
Williams started there. And, you know, you're kind of seeing that come back.
Going back from the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very glad to witness that and kind of going, all right, people are, you know, not, I mean, they're being mindful of the situation,
Right.
but, you know, you can't stay in your house if you know forever. I mean, sometimes it's good to just try things and get them on their feet. So, I realized I did not actually introduce myself in terms of my bio real quick. I started off as an actress. I was here in the Bay Area. I was with American Conservatory Theater, and then did repertoire for a number of years. And when I would move to LA, I kind of fell in, I shouldn't say kind of fell, but I became a studio executive, which was a weird thing that happened. But part of it was that even as an actress, I always studied the script. I studied development, story development, and it made sense. And I became an executive that was good with talent. That was kind of like my thing. I knew how to give notes to creative people because I knew what it was like to receive those notes. And I worked in the studio system for a long time, the corporate route. But now I'm writing my own stuff. I still work as a consultant, but I have pivoted a bit and I'm a novelist. So that's my entertainment journey. Rodney,
Yes.
Can you chime in? You do a lot of writing and stuff like that. So you sound like you probably are very busy right now.
Rodney.
Yeah, Rodney got really busy when all of this hit. Very grateful for that. I sold a couple of shows to HBO Max, and I also have a mini series with about Tiger Woods, a movie for New Regency. I signed a 2-year deal with HBO, overall deal. And we're still writing the Lakers show because we can't shoot it right now. So we won't be able to shoot until April of next year. So the plan is to finish writing by Thanksgiving season 1 and then start to dive right into write season 2. So, you know, around February of last year, I've been in the room that we're talking from right now since February of last year to right now. And thankfully, Zoom started. You know, we could pitch via Zoom and we could have meetings, development meetings via Zoom and writers' rooms via Zoom. And I'm kind of tired of Zoom at this point, but it's allowing business to continue and, you know, to be fortunate enough to continue to work throughout the process. So as far as writing and business is concerned, that's been steady. But as far as actually getting out to shoot things, I'm not in a hurry to do that anyway. But it's mostly been just writing 24/7 every day.
Right. That leads me to think of something. You know, a number of young actors, actresses who might have been in Los Angeles or Chicago or even New York before the pandemic hit, and they were just starting, you know, they were just starting to build their careers, but jobs went away, you know, theater shut down, production wasn't happening, and they probably could not stay in these very expensive cities. You know, they were just getting their foothold, so they, you know, odds are they went back home to their parents and they're waiting this out. So is there advice that we can give to the people who are anxious to basically to get their careers back up on the ground, who don't yet have the networking or the relationships that the 5 of us enjoy? Does anyone have something they'd like to, any advice?
I think I do. I think one of the things is that we as humans always long for connection. And I think it was clearly evident during the pandemic, you know, like Rodney had pointed out, instead of doing the boardroom meetings that we would in person, just transferred it over to Zoom. You know, it was, as Onika pointed out, spending time with family and whatnot. So I think there was always this connection that was being made even during the times right now. And like you said, if people got to go back home, you know, for whatever reasons financially, certain casting directors who I know during the pandemic were holding virtual sessions like this.
Yeah.
You know, they were doing competitions through Instagram where you can submit a tape. And then, you know, out of the top 10, 15 or whatever, they would hold personal meetings just with that actor or actress alone, get to know them in case of something that can happen. You know, Rodney, as he said, he took off during the beginning of the pandemic just because, okay, well, he could create at his home still and still do his job there. So, you know, I think it's number one, just about like networking virtually, just getting really savvy with that. And number two, just using your resources, whether it is an untapped skill that you want to cultivate now, or finding people similar to you to cultivate that so they can be ready, you know, when the new normal comes back.
Right.
I agree. Like Denzel, like right on it. Where as a lot of times as actors and creators, we get lazy and we think that everything should come to us, and we're so talented, and you know, you should just hire me because I'm this talented, and stuff. It doesn't happen like that. So I think now more than ever, it's like people are just more open to, you know, when we do have downtime, is like checking out somebody that they've never, you know, seen before, like, you know, make those, you know, reach out to people, be like, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, if there's never, some people are shy of doing that. Some people overdo it. Just know the balance, you know, I think, but do it. Like, no one's going to knock on your door and say, hey, I want you to star in this new film. You know?
That's true. I had a different kind of experience with the COVID thing. I got COVID just prior to it breaking out in the news. I got it in early March. And I think I may have gotten it from a film I was working on. I'm in Lee Daniels' next film, which is called The United States versus Billie Holiday.
No.
And I think I might have gotten it from there because it hit New York first, I think. And I was working with a lot of New York actors that we were shooting out here. Mm-hmm. So I got it, and it was hell for 3 days, and then after that, it was all gravy. So by the time it kind of hit everything else, I had already been past it, and so it kind of took away a lot of the anxiety that a lot of people might have felt for me because I had the antibodies, and so as horrible as this thing is, and as horrible as the economy has been hit by this pandemic. For me, it was kind of, if I'm going to be honest with you, it was kind of nice. I mean,
and you had the worst too. That New York COVID was the worst.
I know. But I
had people like, I can't breathe.
No, I just felt like I got a chance to kind of like to reflect, to recharge, and then to kind of like to reorganize myself. And just as Rodney was saying, you know, once you've got all the noise quiet, you know, you can actually create some things. Well, I kind of took a different kind of angle. I once the noise was out, I just thought I want to keep the noise out. And because I had just finished that movie, that was cool. I had some work just finished. I also was in 4 of the 8 episodes of P-Valley, playing a pastor, well, half pastor, half pimp is the way I phrase it. And
love that show.
And so that was airing as the pandemic was going on. So it seemed like I'm still in the business, plugged in somehow.
Right.
And I got another couple jobs while things were happening. We shot a Zoom kind of project, which was cool. Last week I was on a shoot in Detroit, and it was for a commercial, but someone in the art department tested positive, so they shut the whole thing down, flew us all back to LA, and then now Monday we got to fly back out there to finish it up. So I have been doing a little work, but I've been really kind of focusing on trying to organizing myself as a producer and getting projects like Rodney, trying to get projects all my ducks in a row so that once things fully open up, I can go at it. But it's been kind of like a blessing. And I also realized I have a situation that's kind of nice too. I have a house that has a lot of outdoor space in LA. So I felt like I really I didn't feel like I was claustrophobic, or I didn't get cabin fever too badly, and I think that's part of the reason why I actually started projects around the house and did some carpentry stuff, which I had to YouTube because I'm not a carpenter. but it was all good. Stuff turned out well, man. So I'm good. And then I started getting cabin fever and wanted to write, and I thought, if I'm going to write someplace, let me go someplace out of the country. And I booked a couple trips, and both of them got canceled. I was going to go to Colombia for a couple weeks. Not a lot of people want Americans traveling there, so even though I'd had it, it wasn't happening. But no, it's been kind of cool for me to reorganize. And now projects, I think this pandemic, like most crises, it inspires a lot of creativity. So we just shot a thing yesterday that was this show that people were Zooming like this, and somebody gets killed on Zoom, and everybody freaking out watching it happen. And then at some point, you want to call 911, but you realize, I know this person and we talk to them all the time, but I don't know where they live. Right. Somewhere on the west side, but I don't have their address. And so
like internet dating.
Yeah, exactly. so I mean, there's a lot of creativity coming out of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Right. One thing I also would like to cover a bit, since some other things, of course, have been happening outside of the pandemic and the dumpster fire of our politics right now. But there has been a huge racial. It's like, is this a movement? Is this a moment? Is there honestly interest in hearing our stories and addressing social justice in a effective way? As we're talking about projects that we're working on, is any of this stuff that is resonating and you're kind of going, yeah, I'm getting more calls because people are asking me about, do I have a story about this and stuff like that? Does anyone have something to say about this? Suddenly everyone's woke.
Well, one of the TV,
black and white, huh?
It's hip to be woke now.
One of the TV shows that I sold is called Things That Make White People Uncomfortable. It's a book adapted by a book by Michael Bennett, the former football player, just retired. And going through the pitching process, having pitched things for a long time, it was odd because there was it was probably the most rebellious thing other than the Boondocks that I've ever been a part of. And the networks were more, they were more open to hearing things that probably they wouldn't have been a few years prior to, just because of the nature of what's going on, what they see on TV every day and what's going on out in the world. And I think, I don't know if it'll ever get to a place where it's even to where you're getting just pure truth, because I just don't know if that's the politics of Hollywood. But I do think there is even just from a marketing place, a lot of places feel now that they need to be a little bit more conscious to what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I'm seeing that.
I had a commercial. This is a beautiful commercial. It was meant for the Super Bowl, and it got pulled a couple of days before the Super Bowl. And they spent over $1 million in this commercial, and it was the type of commercial where, if I'm going to be straight with you, I was surprised that they cast a person of color to play the lead, because so often we're the bridesmaid or the groom. And they made this beautiful commercial that was unique in every way, and I was the lead in it. And then they pulled it, and then COVID happened, and they couldn't shoot, and they re-released it. Now that you're saying all this, I'm wondering whether they re-released it because they had this project that had a black person, as the lead in it, and maybe that's why it was re-released. I hadn't even thought about that. I'm thinking all COVID. That could possibly have been the situation. I know that when this thing happened, I mean, I was on the SAG-AFTRA board for 6 years, and we were working very hard during the time when they were talking about hashtag Oscar So White to try and change things. And I think we made some headway, and it became evident last year, I think, with some of the shows. And then the pandemic happened, and it became more evident that about the injustice and the imbalance. And so I think it's been a good thing for us. I think this is the best time in the history of Hollywood to be a person of color. I think this is the best time in the history of Hollywood to be female. But we still have a ways to go.
Yeah, I'd have just even with having discussions on book covers, and as an author, and like 2 years ago, I mean, yeah, we're talking like just 2 years ago, you were discouraged to indicate that if your book had was a person of color, was the lead character. There were other things that were put on the covers to, but you didn't want to have like a black girl or a black boy unless it was about a juvenile delinquent or something like that. And I would say that now they're like, so going, no, you want to indicate. We're seeing covers, especially in YA, where you're seeing black girls with natural hair. And telling you, a couple of years ago, you never would have seen that. So that's, I hope that it continues, and that it's not, again, this is not just like, a minute when it should be a movement.
Well, I'm hoping that once you open the door and they see that this is successful, and that it makes money, that they'll realize that. There's a professor at UCLA that did a 5-year study, and it was titled "Why Hollywood Doesn't Look Like America." Mm-hmm. And I spoke with him, and he invited me to this conference where he was actually explaining it. And one of the examples that they gave was the Furious 5, the car. What is it called? Furious something. Whatever that car.
Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah.
And he said there was a producer, a young brother on it, and he was saying that when they first made the first movie and the box office numbers came back, all of the producers were shocked because it was so much bigger than they expected. So they said we had to make a second one. Then they made the second one, same thing. The box numbers came back and they were shocked again. He said even at Furious 5, they were still being shocked, and he said he was shocked that they were still shocked. He says, because for him, it was obvious. He says, it's like the United Nations. Everybody's represented. So everybody who wants to go to the movies, they're engaged. There's somebody up there that they can see themselves and they're part of it. So they're invested in this movie and they care about these characters. And he was saying, the word kind of, he brought he wrote this article and the word kind of got out in Hollywood. And there was like a memo that went to Hollywood execs that says, listen, this is not just a good thing to do. This is a financially good thing to do.
Well, there's one with Black theater now as well.
Exactly. If you're not putting people of color in it, if you're not making it reflect our society, then you're affecting our bank, our bottom line. And if you can't make the adjustment, then we'll adjust you by getting you out and replacing you. And I have seen in the last couple of years, doors opening up and people being much more open to ideas for projects that aren't based on your typical way of doing business in the 1950s. That kind of way of doing it.
There's always going to be a fight. I mean, there's me growing up in Berkeley and being biracial, but considered I consider myself Black, but I'm in New York and I'm Puerto Rican. You know what I mean? But like going back to like Boondocks and stuff, like it was so controversial, all the things that, they were talking about, but it was real. It's what we lived, so there's been a progression. And I think like, there's always like this, like even going back to Rodney King, when Rodney King got killed, like, okay, we need to make this, there's slow advancements. And that's why I think like people get so frustrated because it's not going to change overnight, you know.
Yeah.
But I think this with the pandemic, and as me and Denzel, Denzel and I had discussed this earlier, that the pandemic kind of stopped everybody's lives so we can focus on what's really going on, because we get so distracted with everything else in our own progressions and all of this, that we're not watching the news, or not listening to this president speaking and what he's saying and all of that, and and these videos of our people getting murdered by people who are supposed to protect us, and I think it's gave us a bigger, crack in the door to be like, okay. And I'm encouraging all of my creators to be like, okay, get it in while you can, like, and not even just on production and stuff. Like, I have a friend that works in the NBA, and she's a VP, and they, she's the only Black VP I won't say the only, but she was one of the first, I'll say, of in professional sports. And everyone's coming to her like, what should we do? And they gave her like some, a few titles now. And I'm like, take that title, and run with it. So, you have to, people to understand, like, it's going to be a slow progression. You can't just like force feed, like it's a hard battle what we're fighting, to get our stories made, and to have, we're such a diverse group of people. We're not just, there's like 50 shades of Black, there's 50 shades of white, there's 50 shades of Asian, like, and people don't understand that. And, that's what we're trying to push forward and open that gap to allow that to happen.
Absolutely.
Simply put, while the door is open, kick it down. And don't kick it down forcefully, like bum rush through it.
And be like, hey.
Look, it's like, we were just talking about the other day, Netflix started a new division that specifically is looking for stories of color, looking for diverse stories, however you may be. Now, I think goes to what we've expressed earlier about playing the same roles. Even as an actor, what I've experienced is like the same audition for the troubled kid who like has to balance this life of street mentality, but he's secretly smart. Or the other thing is like revisiting the plantation, which I frankly, want to at least move away from or make it more diverse. So, when you look at a story like Lovecraft, even if it was made within the last 2 years, when you look at like Black Panther or whatnot, there were such progressive stories that have recently come out, and to Ricco's point, even with, the Fast franchise, showing Hollywood that the money can be made. So now that there's this guilt that has set in, some of these executives, however you may be, once the movement was really kicking off, I had my agents and people I've been working with for several years checking in on me. I knew where it was coming from.
Right.
You check on me and get my opinion. Well, let me tell you what my opinion is. Right. I felt being at your agency this long. And although I love you guys, you didn't look at me the same as your white client. So guess what? Now we're going to have this discussion. And if you guys honestly want to hear it, sit down and take it. And while we have the opportunity to sit at these boardrooms, great, let's push the button a little bit. You know what? I want to tell some stories that are a little different than me getting whipped by a master on a plantation. Guess what I'm going to tell you? So let me bridge those stories. Onika, you said there's shades to our Blackness. So I want to see those shades. I love that on Lovecraft Country. It's like magic and wizardry, and we could be like the Black Indiana Jones. And
beautiful. Yeah.
When do you do that?
Yeah.
It's so far few in between. So let's start busting open that door. I mean, while it's there, that's the only way that true change is about to come about. And we're seeing the protests happening overseas, and we're seeing people get attuned and woke. And I know, our Armenian brothers and sisters, they're going through, a heavy plight right now. Even in Nigeria, they're going through some stuff right now. So while the internet is alive and woke, let's pay attention. Let's help each other out.
Right.
Yeah.
And, when we, break down some doors, make sure we pull some other people in behind us. And I know with sisters, hair and makeup is a huge deal. And, a number of Black actresses when they have been able to be the leads on their shows, or in the top 3 or 4 of the casting calls. They have insisted on getting people who know how to do our hair.
Oh yeah.
After years of jacked up hair, dealing with wigs. So it's definitely, bring people along with you. One of the things I would like to hit is that we've all made good choices at some point in our life. Is there a story or something you could reflect where an opportunity came your way and it might not have looked like a great opportunity at the time, but you went for it. You went after something and it ended up being the right choice. I think a lot of times younger people don't always know when a right opportunity comes their way. They're kind of waiting for something else, or thinking something that's a little bit more traditional, or how they believe their career should progress. So can we share some stories about times when it worked and you didn't know it would?
I'll start off, and I'm going to piggyback on a little bit of what Denzel was talking about bum rushing that door. When I first started off, my first job was playing a small part in West Side Story, but it was theater in California that was paying over $1,000 a week, even for rehearsals. And I was like, wow, this is what I'm talking about. I get there, the choreographer gets booked in a movie, and all of a sudden his part is open, and his part was playing action, was one of the leads. And so as a young actor who was really at the time thinking I was just going to be a hoofer in the show, I got up the nerve to tell them that I wanted to audition for that part. And they were like, no, we're going to have to pull an audition. I said, hold your audition, but just put me in the audition as well. And that's how I got my first lead. So I would say this to young actors is that you really do have to understand that the limits that you have, that you cannot limit yourself. We have to begin to get used to dreaming bigger. And we also have to get used to everybody listening to this. If you're an artist, everybody listening to this should be writing. We have stories. We have such amazing, colorful, beautiful stories, and we cannot wait for white Hollywood to write these stories about us. We have to also jump in there and come up with our flavor, because when we write it, then you see something very different, and it's beautiful. So my point is not to wait. One little quick story I would like to say is that I was having the same frustration that Denzel was talking about. I did Hill Street Blues and played a gang member. I come from Chicago, so playing a gang member was nothing for me. I knew those guys how to do that. And the show was successful. We won the most Emmys ever for a show the last season. And I couldn't get an audition for anything but gang members after that. Mind you, I had just graduated from UCLA with a master's degree. Mm-hmm. And I could only get auditions playing gang members. So I left, and I talked to a professor, and he says, maybe you should go to England and study Shakespeare for a year. He said, it will be good for you as a young man, as a person, but it would also be good for you as an actor. And so I did that. I auditioned, I got in, I went over. The first thing they said to the American actors is, we'd like you to acquire a British accent because we want you to focus on character and not so much on accent. By the time the program was over, I sounded more British than the British. And when my peers were leaving and going out and auditioning and getting jobs and agents, I thought, I don't have papers, but I'm going to do it too. So I put on my best British accent. I went into those auditions as a Brit, and for the first 4 years, I worked as a British Black actor in England. So I mean, you have to reach for the stars. You have to know that the limits that you sometimes have are limits that you put on yourself. There are already limits out there. We don't need to put limits on ourselves. So we have to dream big, and we have to have the courage to go after those. And if you fail, you haven't lost anything, you know?
My mom used to tell me to go into American auditions with a British accent because then I'll get hired.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to do that too.
You got to do what you got to
do. Talk about not
living in the room, right?
Yeah, I think that it's weird because I get asked a lot how do I get into this and blah, 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 and, what do I do? And there's no one cookie cutter way of doing this. It's like everyone has to find their own journey. I know a lot of people that started off as actors and turned into writers and directors. And I know a lot of people that wanted to be, like, including myself, like I've always wanted to be more of a writer, director, but my opportunities have opened up more as an actor. So, but I think like learning all of it, just as much as you could learn, and, and whether you go to school, but, and even like, attending a college, a university, or you just attending the college of hard knocks, on the streets, whatever you can do, just read a book, watch YouTube, just learn your craft. And when whatever you want to do as a filmmaker, more so like, even theater, but like as a filmmaker, you should just know you should know how to do makeup. You should know how to do craft services. You should just, like all of this is going to come into play. But I don't know, it might just be me because I'm a multitasker and stuff. Some people can only do one thing at a time, which is what they do in their journey. I think that if you want to be a better, artist, that you learn every single position. I've even trained like in, hustle jobs, restaurants, and they train you to, like, you need to train how to be the hostess. You need to train how to be a bartender. You need to train how to be a line cook, all of that. And the more that you know about what you're getting into, what you want to do, the more you're going to be able to provide on set and share with your other fellow artists and, your directors and all of that, of what you're trying to do and accomplish on set. And everyone's going to love you and appreciate you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rodney,
you've predominantly been writing and such. Did you always want to be a writer? Was that something that you knew you wanted to do back when you were in high school?
Yeah, I had my 8th grade English teacher as I guess as a dare. I was kind of the class clown back then. And he gave me an assignment that was sort of put me front and center where I could embarrass myself. And it was writing the lead story for the school newspaper. And I put my all into it because I didn't want to be embarrassed. And the teacher said, after he had read it, that if you put as much work into writing as you did into being a class clown, you could be a halfway decent writer. And that stuck in the back of my head. And when I was at Howard, I was going to Howard in the School of Communications. And I was also a production assistant on movies in the area. So I worked on like Forrest Gump and Clear and Present Danger and Pelican Brief, a bunch of movies in the area. And eventually I worked on a movie, Major Payne, in Virginia with Damon Wayans. Mm-hmm. And after about 4 or 5 days, one of the lead ADs said, Damon would like to see you in his trailer. I thought I was going to get fired. I thought I had said something or done something or whatever. But Damon said, you seem like a smart guy. I don't know where he got that from. But he said, what do you want to do in this business? And I told him I wanted to be a writer. He said, really? I said, okay. He said, we're going to see if you really want to be a writer. So for the next 2 years, I followed him around the country, sleeping in my car, working on his movies and stand-up. And worked on a Celtic Pride, Bulletproof. And basically I was commuting from Maryland, where I'm from, to LA. Like he would call and say, I got a job on Thursday. If you could be here by Thursday, and I would race across country and make just enough money to get back home. And so eventually, after the movie Bulletproof, he said, if you really want to be a writer, like for real, you're going to have to commit and come to LA. And I gave myself every excuse in the world. I don't know anybody here. All I've known is Maryland and the East Coast my whole life. And he said, well, you got to decide what you want to do. And he wasn't the type that would put you in a hotel or give you some money or whatever. He would give you an opportunity, and that was it. And that was enough. And I ended up packing up my stuff, living in my car for about a year. If you know LA, on the corner of Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard, there was a Long's drugstore. and it had a retaining wall in the back, and that's where I would
easy car living.
live in my car, and I would
Wow.
Right.
I probably saw you.
He's live in the Beverly Hills, though.
I gave you $2 one day, man. Remember me?
Yeah, there you go. And they asked me to move, and I'd move my car around the corner and move right back because I didn't know the area. I didn't know Studio City sort of kind of was, it was on a grid, so I could maneuver my way around. The rest of LA was kind of all over the place. And so for like a year, I worked as a production assistant by day and ate craft services food and snuck food out, and people started feeling, it was funny. Chris Rock has a saying that, you know, if somebody breaks down and they're just sitting in their car waiting for help, he won't help them. But if they get out and they push their car, he's more apt to get out and help them. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like the more people knew my story, that I really wanted to be a writer and I was from Maryland and blah, 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 and all the other stuff, people were more apt to give me a hand. And after a year or so, I got my legs under me. I started to work more and more and more. I didn't immediately become a writer, but opportunities started to come my way, and it seemed like people were more empathetic with someone who wanted to do it so badly that they were willing to forego comfort in order to take a shot at their dream. And so it probably took 3.5 years from when I got here to actually getting my first WGA gig, you know, to cross over. But that's the short version of the story.
That's a story in itself, brother.
Seriously.
Yeah. So this is a tough business. I mean, we all know it. And some people, I mean, I've been doing this now for a number of years, had different jobs over the course, but there are a number of folks who I started with who are no longer working in the entertainment industry. And some of them were incredibly talented people, incredibly talented. So why do you think that you're still here and you didn't, and are there things that we can share that, you know, for folks out there who kind of like, you know, stick with it, or is there a way to stick with it? Because we're going to hear a lot of no's. You hear a lot of no's.
I can only say for me, and I'll say it quickly, I suffer well. So if being able to develop the emotional endurance to be rejected consistently over time, it's like I probably have, you know, you look at my IMDb, I've had maybe 40, 50 jobs over the course of my career. I've probably been turned down for thousands and had scripts and things I had to do for free, work I didn't want to do. I had a garbage company for a while to help supplement being able to pay the rent at night. I had to do a lot of things that I didn't want to do in order to be able to continue to get to a place where I'm at right now. So I think for anybody who has just a stick-to-itness to persevere, there's a place for you here.
Onika said something that I wanted to reiterate. She says that you got to learn all the different aspects of the business, and I think that's really important. And for not only that reason, but because sometimes you may go in thinking, I want to be in this business and this part of the business as an actor, and might find that your talents really lie in writing or producing or something like that. So the more you know about it, the more you probably find where you're good at. So the other thing I wanted to say about that is I think that young actors have to understand that, yes, you should learn a lot about the business, but you can also learn on the job. Because I've been in the business and I've seen a lot of very talented people pack up and say, you know what, my bills come every month, but the gigs only come, you know, twice a year, and I have to get out of this business. And so for young people, I would say this: you can learn on the job. Don't keep studying, take your classes or whatever, but still go out and audition. Don't wait to be completely ready before you start going out, because as an artist, you are never completely ready. So I've been on jobs, and I don't know whether this is a black or white thing or not, but I've been on jobs where I've seen complete people that I've never seen before who are playing leads, and they're horrible. But by the end of the series or movies, they're actually gotten quite good on the job, getting paid. And so I find, and I run into a lot of actors that won't go on auditions thinking I'm waiting until I get my real right, or I'm waiting until I get my new pictures. There's always going to be something for you to get new. I'm saying audition, get yourself out there anyway while you're learning these crafts. And I think that that goes again with what I want people to do, is to try and reach for the stars, man. Don't put a ceiling on yourself.
Absolutely.
I would go on auditions as this other actor friend of mine who I felt was more talented than me, and I would go on auditions thinking, what would Walt do? Walt Bennett was an actor, was an amazing actor. He couldn't get started in Hollywood, so he became a writer, and he wrote on The Cosby Show, and he became really successful as a writer. And he stopped acting because that was where he was getting the love. I personally thought his acting ability was phenomenal, but Hollywood, he looks more Africanic than I do, and I think Hollywood wouldn't embrace him, more probably because of the way he looked as opposed to his talent. Because I would go on auditions thinking, what would Walt do?
Yeah, I think the key is just you just can't quit. You just don't stop. You just keep going, and like Rodney said, you just build a resilience and this tough skin and a survival plan of whatever. Like you just don't stop. It ain't over till it's over. And you just keep going and just. That's it. Really. I actually ran into like a lot of actors and stuff. It's funny, that I've known for 20 years, and we weren't getting a lot of work in our first 10 years of auditioning, getting nothing, not even getting auditions. And now everyone's like, damn, there's only like 4 of us left. So like out of like the usual, because now they're writing a lot of more characters for older actors, when that comes available, you have such a smaller pool because people have families and they or go different routes and all that stuff. And now we have more chances, So you have to just, when it's your time, it's God's time,
Yeah, definitely. So here's also always sometimes an illuminating type of question. Is there anything that you did in your career that you regret? That you kind of go, I don't think I would have taken that role, or I don't think, that job was not what I thought it was going to be, or is there anything that you would kind of go, I made a mistake, or a little bit of regrets?
I think that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
We make so many mistakes. I've had a panic attack in a a producer session. They turned the fan on, my hair was blowing, like I thought I was Beyonce, and I just like froze. And they're like, okay, no, no, you gotta go. What I mean? It's good.
Yeah.
It's just the learning experience. The mistakes are really,
I used to think that I would find a savior. I used to think that there would be someone, if I got to know this person, or somebody would open a door up for me, or I didn't realize that I could do it myself, that it was a matter, I was in control of my own destiny. I always thought that if there was a bright light shining over there, that I had to go there, and then that person would kind of give me permission or do a thing. I didn't realize how much control I had over my own. If I just did the right things and I worked hard enough and I put myself in the right position. And really in the writer's world, that comes from writing. If I have scripts and I continue to get better and better and better, and I have the emotional endurance and the focus to be able to refine a thing to the point where it's polished and the best reflection of who I am as a writer, that would speak more for me than someone else putting in a good word for me or giving me an opportunity or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of times we seek out mentors, and I think mentors are excellent. And, if you have an opportunity to work with a mentor or someone who is giving you, advice and stuff like that, but you always, there generally comes a time where you outgrow your mentor, and you have to recognize that. You have to realize they got me this far, and now I want to explore something else. And, their advice is not going to line up very well if you're heading in another direction. And it does take maturity to realize that, sometimes, the relationship is valid, but it's going to shift and change.
I think it's hard to develop your own voice when you're constantly listening to other people's voices. As a writer, I can just say that it took me years. It took at least a good 12, 13 years for me to begin to, all right, what do you want to do? To be able to write from my heart, to speak from my heart, to be able to be authentic in my work. Because in the beginning, I was just terrified that at some point I was never going to be able to work again, because I had seen people start, lose that gig, and never work again. And I didn't want to be that person. So when I got a gig, I would hold on for dear life and whatever you need me to do. And when it came time to pitch or do things like that, I would only regurgitate the things that I had done. I really wasn't looking inward to say, what is it that I do best? And when I got to that point where I was able to see me authentically, my work got better. I became a commodity in my own right. But I had to go through a process first of letting that fear, pushing it to the side for a moment to develop me.
Yeah, this speaks very well in terms of longevity, because, we're hearing from all the people here how they started doing things one way at a certain age when they were in their 20s, and then started to shift and turn, grow, mature, and, as artists, to find themselves and actually find their own authenticity. So that's key.
I just want to jump in, and I want to say that what you said about mentor and what you guys were speaking of, I mean, Rodney kind of like stumbled upon a mentor, kind of, but I do think mentors are really important. If you can, don't be afraid to ask someone and use the word, I'd like you to be my mentor.
Yes.
Even if it's, and you can have more than one mentor. But for Black people, often we have to reinvent the wheel with everything we do, because a lot of us, myself included, didn't have people in the business or a parent or a father figure around that says, son, this is how you do it. A lot of us are brought up, for single mothers. And so as a young man, I would often have to figure out things between my brother and my friends, whereas I could possibly have gotten where I wanted to be a lot faster by finding a mentor that was willing to just mentor me for a little bit. So mentors are very important.
Yes,
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are rounding down to near the hour. Is there any topic or something that people would like to share to make sure that this is advice or stuff that we want to get out there in the world?
I think, geared towards, how would you say, anybody who's listening who's probably young. I got started when I was 10, and don't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid to fail, because a lot of my friends, a lot of people I came in the industry with, as we've sort of covered, you see 20 of the same buddies within the same auditioning room. Now that's down to 5, and then a whole new group comes in. This industry moves at the speed of light, and it's always going to change. It's always going to be consistently changing. So rejection is something that you have to get comfortable with. You have to get comfortable with being in the uncomfortable, which I believe has already been expressed here. I think it's important to say it, at least, from a younger perspective, is because I feel like in my early 20s, there was a lot of opportunity that I didn't necessarily seize, because you're still trying to find yourself. And that's okay. You allow that time to find yourself. But within that time, it might lead you down a different road. I spent 5 years over at Cartoon Network as an editor, working on Boondocks with Rodney, and working on Black Dynamite and Freaknik and a couple different other projects, just because acting wasn't picking up in one direction. That led to my music video experience as a director. And then that came in handy later on as a skill set, where you find yourself learning other people's roles, but then you also have more of an appreciation of the people you work with. And once you have an appreciation of the collaborators you work with, then that only creates a stronger bond because you can really push and pull out of each other what needs to be done. And so I think, you know, now at this time, you know, emerging into my 30s, I can at least confidently say that now those hardships that you face young, fail early and get it out of your system and just accept it and keep moving, you know?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to close us out. This has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this conversation with these exemplary people who are movers and shakers and will continue to do so. It's like as soon as the pandemic, as soon as the world opens up again, it's going to be, I mean, the doors are going to be knocked down. So bravo to everyone here, and be safe. Be safe.
Thank you. It's been great on the call with you guys. Nice meeting you guys on Zoom.
Likewise.
Rodney, I'm also your work brother, so it's nice to be on the Zoom with you as well. And I hope we all get to work together someday soon.
Yeah.
As do I. Yeah.
We will.
Everyone stay safe and healthy, please. Everyone.
You too, brother. You too.
All right, guys.
Take it easy.
Blessings.
Robin.
All right.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.